Welcome to the Grace Story Podcast, where inspiring stories are brought to life. This podcast is made possible by Grace College and Seminary, located on the shores of Winona Lake in the great state of Indiana. I'm your host, Dr. Drew Flam. This is the Grace Story Podcast. Today, our guest on the podcast is LeAnne Lavender. LeAnne graduated from Grace in 2010 and since then has been remarkably industrious. Right after earning her bachelor's degree, LeAnne began serving as an admissions counselor at Grace, where she was very successful, and then continued her career in admissions down in Indianapolis. In 2017, Mudlove asked her to come on as director to help with its fundraising efforts, and LeAnne eagerly accepted, and has now developed what is known as Lovewell Fundraising. LeAnne is also founder of Lavender Accessible Design, where she helps others design and create accessible spaces for their home or business, and her work's been featured on platforms including Dwell and Design Sponge. Additionally, she's become an advocate of the spinal cord community through her social media presence, Lavenders Longshot, educating others about accessibility, but also spreading hope about life. LeAnne, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Drew. Thanks for having me.
I hope you're enjoying your weekend in Winona.
Oh, of course. There was a homecoming parade this morning. That was a pleasant surprise. That was pretty fun.
Lots of candy, right?
Yes, lots of candy.
My kids brought home lots of candy from that same parade, which we will subsequently eat when they go to bed tonight.
Yep,
so, yes,
exactly.
I'm very excited about that. Thank you for joining us this weekend and being honored as our Young Alum of the Year. And you are very deserving, though I'm sure you don't feel that way, just for the way that you've lived and used the platforms God has given you. But I want to take you back to your time at Grace as a student and tell us a little bit about how you got to Grace. And even our theme this year is together. So how you got connected to others and what your time at Grace was like.
Yeah, so I am, well, first of all, thanks for having me. Super, super honored about the Alumni Award. Definitely don't feel deserving of it, but excited to be back. My time at Grace started in 2007. So I actually I went to a Grace Brethren church growing up. So we had heard about Grace, but I am from Ohio. So Cedarville was kind of where most kids ended up going. And I started out in a nursing school for a year. And nursing was just not my forte. So at the end of that year, I decided I wanted to try something a little different. And my friend Ainsley was actually coming to Grace, and I applied, talked my parents into letting me give it a shot. And yeah, transferred to Grace in 2007. And I didn't even tour the campus. I knew nothing I didn't get to pick my roommate because I was a transfer student.
Wow.
It was within a month that I applied, got accepted, and then came here. And I don't know, it's pretty crazy looking back on how quickly that all happened, and then how much God did in my life through coming to Grace.
Seems like it was sort of this quick decision.
Oh, yeah.
And you didn't know how monumental
Absolutely.
it would be. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So transferred to Grace and decided to become a business major on literally a whim, basically on a Google search, trying to figure out.
That's pretty much how we all lead our lives now. So.
Oh, yeah. If I'm not going to do nursing, what can I do? Okay, business. And that was, basically my pick. And so ended up here and just loved it. Loved it.
And after you graduated, you loved it so much you stuck around, right? So
I did
how'd you end
around.
up being an admissions counselor and, sort of being on the other side of selling Grace to others?
Yeah. So while I was here at Grace as a marketing major, I actually interned at Biomet for a couple years. And while there, my senior year, I remember I was trying to decide what to do career-wise, and I got called in for a job opportunity in Germany. And they said, it's going to be 2 years in Germany, whatever. And I literally, when I went in for the interview, my maiden name was Bundenthal, and I'm German. And I think they thought I spoke German, and I don't. And so I had to tell them, I don't even know German. So then I got kind of nixed for the job. And at that time, I was like, well, what now? And my mentor, Emily Brenneman, had said, hey, I saw there's an opening in admissions. You just have to talk about how much you love Grace and try to get kids into it. And I was like, oh, that's easy. I love Grace. I could, travel around doing that. So I took a position in the admissions office, and I had everything west of Indiana was my territory. So I got to travel around a lot. And loved it. It was a really good fit for my personality too. So.
And one of the things you told our students in chapel is, you didn't come for an MRS degree, nor did you get one while you were at Grace, but you did get married soon after to Derek, and that took you down to Indianapolis.
That's right.
Where you continued to serve, right, with Grace.
Right.
You were that good. We said, sure, you can work for Grace from Indianapolis. That works for us. But then life changed quite drastically in 2016. So tell us just a little bit about that period of time and, again, that theme of together and what that meant for you.
Right. So, like Drew said, so I met my husband just shortly after taking my job at Grace. So Derek we dated for 3 years while he was down actually in Indy, finishing up his graduate degree. And so the kind of fun thing now is that Derek's family is actually from here in Winona Lake. And so a lot of my friends from Grace College were actually his friends in high school, like people he knew growing up. That's how we met. So now as we're down in Indianapolis, a lot of our friends are down there. So it's really fun. But yeah, so we were married for 2 years. Derek was working there. I was working at Grace. And we had kind of just really gotten into a really good routine of like marriage, and we were fixing up our home and a lot of things. And then in June 15th, 2016, Derek was in a serious motorcycle accident on his way downtown, just on a random Wednesday morning, going into work about 6 a.m. And so he is now paralyzed from the chest down. So we had been married 2 years, right about 3 years when the accident had happened. So it was definitely a little, it's a total life changer. And I feel like when things, we all have traumatic things happen to us where there is like a before and after. I guess it doesn't have to be traumatic. Marriage, college, there's definitely like breaks in our life where we can look back and see those areas. And that definitely June 15th was a big one for us.
Tell us about, it was in the morning and just even, that first couple hours after figuring out what's going on with my husband and just how you processed it. And even that first day, I think you wrote a blog post a little bit about the experience. So just how did you process that difficult moment in time?
Yeah. So it happened, like I said, early in the morning. So I didn't really figure out what was going on until about 7 a.m. So I had texted Derek twice around like 6:30 and then 6:45 asking if he was safe, and I never heard back. And then at 7:15, I got a phone call from actually Derek's phone, which is like kind of crazy in of itself, from a guy named David at Eskenazi Hospital, who told me that Derek had been in a really serious motorcycle accident and needed to get downtown as soon as possible. And at the time, he wouldn't really tell me much. And so I think I just knew deep down that it probably wasn't good. And our families both lived 2 hours away. So as they were driving in, I was at the emergency room, super anticlimactic. I think watching all these like ER shows, you're like, oh, it's probably like chaos. And people are, I like walk in and just that David guy sitting at the desk, and he just said, if you want to have a seat. And I remember he's like, can I get you anything? And I was like, coffee would be great. He's like, I don't have any coffee. And I said, okay, can I get some water? He's like, I don't have any water. And I was like, okay, just don't worry about it. I'll just go sit over here by myself. And it took about an hour for the doctors to come out and just kind of tell me what happened. And to this day, the accident's a mystery, so they don't really know what happened. They found Derek in a ditch off the side of the highway. So someone had called the ambulance to come and get him. And he actually, sorry if this is too much detail, kind of fun fact, he was like totally with it when they saw him. He obviously gave them the code to his phone to get in to call me. But when you're in a spinal cord, like when it's a serious accident and they don't want you to move, so they had said with spinal cord injuries, they actually give you a shot so that you don't remember anything. It's almost like basically like a roofie that just like relaxes you. It kind of wipes your memory out. So they said that he'll never remember, but not from a head injury or anything, but just from the medication they give him. So so that's when we found out that he is paralyzed from the chest down. And at the time we didn't know anyone who was paralyzed. It was like a totally whole new ball game. I remember just sitting on Google at like 2 a.m. that night in the hospital room, like just Googling stuff because I just didn't know anything about spinal cord injuries. But like you said, I did send out a blog post. So we had an active blog just from like posting about our renovations on our home that we were working on. And it was kind of my like panic, please pray for us. Here's what's going on. Here's the facts and here's what we need prayer for. And it just kind of took off from there. So
that's one of the things that's been so neat is your willingness to be open about this journey that you've been on, now for over 3 years. And, talk us through a little bit of those like first 3-4 months of where you guys went and how you figured out your way around and how people came around you to love and support you.
So with at least with our spinal cord injury and most spinal cord injuries, so you start off in the hospital setting, you kind of, get stabilized. So Derek was in the ICU for a month until they felt confident. They got him off of his trach and feeding tube. He wasn't off his feeding tube yet, but pretty much all like the life things that you need to be off of. And then they'll send you off to rehab. So once you go to rehab, you're still in a hospital setting. There's still doctors there to take care of you. But that's where you learn how to put your socks on and, take a shower and just all the life things that you're going to need moving forward. So Derek was in rehab for 4 months, and that's pretty extensive. I mean, usually they say like 6 to 12 weeks, depending on your injury level. Aside from Derek breaking his back, he did break both of his arm. He broke both his hands and his arm. And so he couldn't even like really wheel himself around. So we were basically waiting those 7 weeks for those injuries to heal until he could start learning like his other stuff. But, it's just crazy. Throughout that time, not only did I continue to blog and just kind of update people on where Derek was and how we were doing, but man, our friends, with the theme community, our friends and family, it was just so incredible to see people just rally behind us. I mean, not only people we didn't know, there was this random lady reached out to me on Instagram and was like, hey, I want to do a fundraiser for you. And she raised $10,000, which paid for Derek's wheelchair, just from like raising like this Instagram community, which was just incredible, raising support from them. But the biggest thing that Derek had said, so I forgot, sorry. We went to rehab, but it was in Chicago. Okay, so we lived in Indy. We had to move to Chicago. I think the biggest, just amazing thing I feel like that God, like huge answer to prayer that he did for us was that Derek was really concerned about me staying in a Ronald McDonald house, which is basically the option there. So that's like a hotel room for people who are going through like a hospital situation. So the Ronald McDonald house there near the rehab facility was a few blocks away, but it was still $90 a night. I mean, and for 4 months, it just was like racking up bills. But I mean, we didn't really have any other options. So that day when Derek moved into rehab, I had all my stuff to move into the Ronald McDonald house, and my mother-in-law was down in the lobby. And when I showed up to the hospital, she had actually beat me there. We were waiting for Derek's ambulance to arrive, and she was on the phone. She hung up the phone. She came over and talked to me and said, this is totally random. There is a family in Warsaw who has a condo here on Michigan Avenue, and they want to know if you want to stay there. Like, they're not going to be using it. There's a doorman, LeAnne, you can come and go as you want. There's 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. This condo is like for you to use. And man, what a blessing. Because, I mean, we still had friends who were going to come stay with me with the Ronald McDonald house. But once I had this condo overlooking
suddenly everybody
Michigan
wanted to come
Avenue,
visit a little bit more often.
Suddenly we were, people came. I mean, we had, 4 months, and I had a little calendar. And Derek's biggest thing was he told his mom, like, I don't want LeAnne to have to be in Chicago by herself. I don't want her to walk back and forth by herself. I had this calendar, and we had someone stay with us every single night. We had family and friends flying in. I mean, it was just so neat to see just the support and people coming in to support us. So,
and I remember I had the opportunity to attend one of those fundraising events down in Indianapolis on a rooftop, and it was unbelievable. I mean, there was like thousands of people there, food tasting, there was music going on, and it was all just to show and share love with you guys. And that it was so amazing just to see that. And as you guys developed a new normal, you started to get back into some work, but you had to do it in unique ways, right?
Right.
And what's neat, I think, is that you went from receiving so much love to now, starting a company that gives so much love. That's why you called it Lovewell, right? So tell us a little bit about just how God got you to where you are now and some of the things that you're working on, and Derek and what Derek's working on as well.
Yeah, it really is neat to see how God took just something I was passionate about and just turned it into like a job that I love. So essentially I was working at Grace. I stepped down because of Derek's accident and need to get him kind of back. And we had done a lot of fundraisers. People were so generous with like the one you attended. I mean, we didn't ask for any of that. People were just showing up and going above and beyond. But one that was done was through Mud Love. So we had, family friends here. They were interested in helping. They started a Mud Love fundraiser. And 6 months later, the owner of Mud Love, Luke, was like, hey, I think we could like turn this into a thing. Like, I think we could start doing fundraisers as a thing, and asked if I wanted to kind of take that over. And it's been, have been employed by them like coming up 3 years now, just helping people raise money through fundraisers. So we started lovewellfundraising.com. And there, we create custom products for free. Well, custom products aren't free, but we create products to help people for free, just to raise funds for things they're passionate about. And it's been really neat. Just the families I've been able to meet, and like, I feel for them. We've been there. I know fundraising is awkward. I know you don't want to have to ask people for help, but if you're gonna, let's do it in like a cool and creative way that doesn't make you feel like it's just doesn't have to be degrading. I think fundraising can be a really neat way for other people to rally around loved ones and
that's
support.
one thing you're doing,
right?
And then you also have design business where you help others. I mean, you'd been working on this house, and so you learned. So how did you get into this, like, sort of being the design guru for accessible homes?
Totally random. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, well, we were, we had to renovate. So we sold our previous house that we were living in because it wasn't accessible, and renovated our current home for Derek's wheelchair. And in that process, I just learned so much of like, okay, just because it's wheelchair accessible, doesn't mean your house has to be super dorky. We can find really creative ways to like integrate design into your home. And I mean, I love our house. We finally moved in last December, and it's just been such a game changer for us to have an accessible space that we just can like enjoy. And I want other people to feel that. And I think oftentimes accessible design, you think of like a nursing home or like a hotel room with like really low counter. It doesn't have to be that way. So it hasn't gone crazy. That's kind of my side gig. I just do it for fun, but just help families integrate design with like any type of disability.
Accessibility. And before I get into your social media presence, like, tell us, Derek, what's he up to now and how's he doing?
Yeah, Derek is doing great. So he went 6 months after the accident, he started back part-time. So Derek is a patent attorney at a law firm down in Indianapolis. And after about a year, finally went back full-time. And they've been awesome. Just really, really great. They're the ones who threw the fundraiser that Drew got to attend. But yeah, they've been great with him. Just anything he needs, they definitely like go above and beyond. But yeah, I mean, he's really busy with work, which he's, he kind of jokes that he sat on his butt all day, every day anyway. So he's like, I really picked a really good career that I could still, since he does have full function of his hands, he can still work full time.
Lord has plans, doesn't he?
That's right.
Like, he still works a lot.
Absolutely. Yep.
Wow.
So he still works. He's driving now. We got a dog. Life. And I told my mother-in-law, I'm like, life is like boring. Like, it's good. I'm really glad life feels boring because it's about,
Took a long time to get there.
Took a little bit of time
to get there. But a new normal has now come to fruition. Okay, and then, Lavender's Long Shot, which is, your blog, and I've joked with you a couple times, and we'll continue that, probably all of us who listen to this, if we combined all of our Instagram followers together, wouldn't get close to where you are. I saw I got mentioned on your Instagram, so I may have, so I may have just doubled my number of followers. My mom and somebody else is now following me. So talk us about that willingness to be open about rebuilding a house turned into openness about, all of your life and has then turned into this thing.
Yeah.
And so tell us how you use that platform and what that platform's all about.
Yeah, so Lavender's Long Shot, even the name is like crazy to me because our house that we were working on when Derek's accident happened was called Long Shot. So we started this blog, Lavender's Long Shot. First of all, this was before Chip and Joanna Gaines were naming houses. We were like ahead of the curve. And we were just keeping people up to date on that. And when Derek's accident happened, like Drew said, I popped that blog out there, like, just here's what's going on. Please pray for us. And it was like 10 days in, the surgeon, one of the surgeons came up to talk to me and he's like, Derek walking again is going to be a long shot. I mean, those were his exact words.
Wow.
And I remember just like, one, like obviously you feel that, like it hurts, but then I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Like we already have this like thing going, like what a cool way to like, we know Derek has less than a 5% chance of walking again. We know it's a long shot. So I just kept that name and just kept, basically turned it into a platform of like keeping people up to date with our life, but also trying to encourage others with like, if they're going through a hard time, that there's, hope in that. And, and also just informing people about spinal cord injuries and accessibility and all the fun things that come along with that.
So how can people find you? Because a lot of people have found you. So how can people find your blog, your Instagram, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so everything is at Lavender's Long Shot. So lavender like the color, long shot like the long shot.
Like your life, right?
Yeah, I just can't think of a better way to explain that one.
And, that has led you into speaking opportunities and all sorts of various things. But, like, what do you see down the pike? Like, what are you excited about for the next journey of the Lavenders?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. We're, kind of trying to figure out the kid thing. I don't know if that's going to work out for us or not. That's definitely, once again, a long shot. But just keeping to pursue things that we enjoy and, whatever happens. I think we both really like our work right now. And, I wish I had a better answer.
You're just jumping right into it.
Yeah, just
all
like,
the things.
Well,
when you have like 8 jobs, which you somehow have accumulated in less than 2 years, you stay rather busy. I think we haven't even talked about Water for Good, right? You're a content strategist there and do a bunch of writing for Water for Good, which is connected back to Grace and Jim Hocking and all that stuff. So you've got all sorts of stuff going on, which is amazing. And again, I just thank you so much for your willingness to be open about your journey. I know that it's been an encouragement to my wife and I, to so many on our campus. And it's neat that in being faithful to the journey and faithful even in your struggles, that so many have seen it and responded and been touched. And you've been able to use what is a tragedy for something good to bring praise and glory to God. And that is just amazing. So thank you for doing that and being willing to even share with our students some of the last couple days, part of your story and journey.
Yeah, it's been an honor. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
No, we appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for listening to the Grace Story podcast. Music was written and produced by Dr. Wally Brath, Assistant Professor of Worship Arts. Thanks to our co-producers, Andrew Palladino and Rick Neer. And if you can do us a huge favor and rate or comment on this podcast wherever you got it from, we'd be so grateful. Until next time, live your best Grace Story today.